Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show, live in the On Purpose Woman magazine and global community Facebook page. I'm Ginny Robertson, one of the hosts of the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show, and I'm also the founder and publisher of On Purpose Woman magazine and founder of the On Purpose Woman global community. My guest today is the owner of Mended Digital, Amanda Schwarz, and we'll be talking about building an authentic digital presence for your purpose-based business. Thanks for talking with me today, Amanda.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excited to have this conversation. And before we dive into that conversation, I want to tell our viewers a little bit about you.
Thank you.
Over the past 15 years, Amanda Schwarz has worked in different facets of the digital marketing industry. Through Mended Digital, she leverages her intuitive, creative, and technical powers for good, supporting small businesses by translating what they do in real life onto the digital landscape. She and her family moved to Mason, Ohio in the summer of 2020 after 14 years in Baltimore, Maryland, which is where we met. And I think we got to see each other twice before the pandemic hit, and then you moved. So I love that I can see you online because you and I connected at it was somebody else's networking event.
It was so
and
weird.
Then you came to one of mine.
Yep.
And I tell people that one of the silver linings of the pandemic is that I had the time to work with you and actually get a beautiful, what I consider highly functioning website put together. And I don't know that I would have taken that time. I could have, but I think mentally, I don't know that I would have. So I'm really grateful about that. So I want to put that out there right now to everyone. If you need a website or an upgrade on a website or any kind of creative design, you want to talk to Amanda and see what she might be able to do for you.
And you know what? If you don't work with me, that's fine too. Evaluate your website. Take a look at what you've got out there and really think about it, because it's an opportunity you really don't want to pass up.
Yeah. And I think it's easy to sometimes forget how much our website isn't working, because I know I had one that somebody had done for me and I was so grateful that they put it together, but then there were other pieces I didn't expect them to do. And I didn't realize, what I was missing. So now everything just flows so beautifully between all the different pieces and takes less work for me on that end. So thank you.
I really enjoy doing that kind of work. So I'm glad I was able to do it for you.
So let's start out by talking about, I found you. We met by chance, if you will, and I liked you. So when I was ready, I knew who I wanted to work with. But let's talk about somebody who's just out there looking. They need to find somebody, because we want a digital presence that is authentic. And for those of us, and a lot of women watching this will be purpose-based businesses, and they'll know what that means. It means you're out there doing your work that defines your purpose, and you're living that every day.
Yeah.
And so how do people go about finding someone that they could work with?
I think that it's a very personal thing, and that you have to be patient enough and open enough to find someone who you really feel comfortable with. And I say that because I talk to a lot of business owners who say, I have this site, I spent a lot of money on the site, and I don't feel good about what's out there. And it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And that's one of the really big reasons why I decided to do what I do for the audience that I do it for, is because I feel like there are a lot of gatekeepers out there who kind of feel powerful with being able to put up the site, and you have to listen to what I'm going to do in order to get the thing you want, and not always great at listening. And I think that finding someone that you feel is listening to you and understands where you're coming from, it's kind of a rare nugget, but I think it's important, especially if you're kind of not quite sure about what you're doing, which I find a lot of people aren't. They kind of say, I know I need a site. They may have a brand, they may not have a brand. They're not really sure what they're doing, but they really need help kind of honing down what it is that they need to be sharing with other people. When I start working with somebody, the first thing I want to do is establish who your customer is and what you want them to do. And once we know who your customer is and what you want them to do, it makes it a lot easier. And I think most web developers or web creators will do that. But sometimes it's nice to know that they're really hearing you, that, you throw out those little things like, yeah, I'm not really sure how to feel about Facebook. And they may say, well, blah, 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 blah. And if that doesn't sound right, maybe that's not the person you want to work with. So I think there's a little bit of phishing involved, a little bit of, not internet phishing, but that's another topic.
Oh, yeah.
But, kind of throwing out those little things like, so how do you feel about newsletters? How does that sound? And like, if someone's saying, oh, you've got to do a newsletter, I mean, granted, newsletters are fantastic. And if you have the energy to do it, absolutely. If you don't have the energy to do it, I am the first person to say, don't do it. Because if you're taking email addresses and you're not sending out something for somebody who wants to receive an email, doesn't look that great. So these are kind of very non-technical things that you're looking for from somebody. It's the touchy-feely kind of things that, people with heart-based businesses and purpose-based businesses, we sense that kind of stuff and trust that gut, or else you may end up with a site that doesn't really reflect who you are or what you want to promote.
Thank you. I so agree with that from this perspective of the client, because that when we started, it was like, okay, had some, at least I had a website you could go in and see, and you'd been to some of my meetings. You have kind of a general idea of what I did and all, but I really had no idea what I wanted as far as the look, especially. And I remember feeling so overwhelmed initially. And then I really got, all I have to do is just talk. And I would just, blah, 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 and say stuff. And you captured some of that. You would come back and say, how about this? And then you gave me a couple of different, designs to look at, not 30 designs to look at. And I loved one of them. They were probably all great. But I thought, and once I understood how everything flowed, I didn't have to think about that stuff. And that's what I so liked about it. That all I had to do was tell you who I am and what I'm about. And what I would like people to experience that was important too when they show up on my site.
And that's the kind of problem solving I love to do, is, kind of listen to what people are, interested in sharing and getting that all together. And I think that, one of the big priorities for me was taking what you were doing, the content that you were creating with the talk show, with the magazine, and making sure that membership was very easy to find. Because if people want to join, they want to join, and they want to join quickly. And that's an experience that I think is important. And especially when someone's handing over the credit card.
I was going to say, if somebody wants to give you money, we shouldn't make it hard for them to do that, right?
Not hard. You don't want it to look sketchy, right? You want it to look like it's legitimate, like, oh, PayPal's coming up. I know what PayPal looks like. We're good.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of experience people feel comfortable with. And since, I feel comfortable talking to you, I know a lot of people do. So we want to make sure that your website is evoking that same kind of feeling of, okay, I know who this person is. I know what they represent. The website reflects that. So there's that kind of comfort with handing over a credit card, handing over information. It's important.
It is important. It's honoring too, I think, to the clients who show up or the potential clients. And what I've started saying since the website has been up and running, I guess it was around November of last year that we finally,
that sounds about right.
I don't know if we did or not, but it was not quite a year ago. But I will say to new people, like in a meeting or something, or in an email, go to my website for everything on Purpose Woman. Because I said, if you can find something that you need to know about the community and what I do that isn't on there, please let me know. And then I'll have, then I would have to decide, was that just a glitchy thing, or is that just not a glitchy thing, but is that just something that maybe only a couple of people might want to see, but the general public might not. But I just love being able to say that, go there for everything, So I thank you for that.
Thank you. And I think that people rely very heavily on platforms like Facebook and Yelp and things like that for having information about them. And there's something to be said for that. But having that one grounded presence where you can just say, go to the website and you don't have to worry about it, it really does take a weight off your mind and just, it makes things a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, you believe that having an online presence can be authentic as well as manageable. So let's talk about this authentic piece. Say a bit more, you touched on that some, but say a bit more about why it's important and what does an authentic website look like?
An authentic website, I believe, looks very different for each person. And I'm starting to look at my portfolio of stuff that I've worked on, and I'm realizing each site looks completely different for the most part. Outside of maybe you pick a similar theme, or if you decide to go with a Squarespace site, all of a sudden, you've got some parameters that are there. But I think that when you truly understand who you are and what you do, which I think a lot of purpose-filled businesses do, because there's a reason why we go into business as purpose and soul-based entrepreneurs, right? So at this point, you have a pretty good feeling of who you are. I think that, coupled with having a very good feeling about who your customer is so important. And then when you bring those two things together, the authenticity kind of comes. If you're not authentic, if you're not really putting out there who you are and what you do, you're probably not going to bring the kind of customers that are going to necessarily enjoy working with you, or you'll want to work with, right? Because it's a two-way street. I think it's pretty cool that I get to have a small purpose-based business myself. So I feel like I have that feeling of, yeah, I do the work because people like it, but I like working with the people that I get to work with, because I put myself out there as who I am, which was something that I wasn't able to do in pretty much anything I was doing previous to what I'm doing now. I don't have to show up as anybody else but myself. So, it may be as simple as you can start with the colors, right? What colors are you using? Do they represent how you feel? Do you have I have one client right now who has a strong aversion to certain colors. And I'm like, you know what? Done. We will figure this out. It can start with that. It can start with, and then it proceeds to other things like, okay, my content. Do I want to write that newsletter? Do I want to blog? And I really feel as though if you are not concentrating on the things that you're going to be able to keep up with and feel good about producing all the time, you may want to avoid it, or you may want to frame it. You may say, I do a blog post, once a week. You're not going to hear from me every day. You're going to hear from me once a week. If you'd like to subscribe to my email, I'll send it to you. There's a certain authenticity in that. There's a way of saying, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to deliver. Here it comes. And there's authenticity that shows somebody something too. It shows them who you are and what you do. So in that light, I think that there's an aesthetic that kind of reflects who you are. There's maybe an under promise, over deliver that may help. But that's what I mean by authenticity, is delivering who you are consistently so people know what to expect, and they know they know what to expect when they're going to work with you. I would tell, I'm rambling, but I'm going to say, I used to tell people all the time last year, my kids are going to be running behind me. This is just what it is. My kids are going to be here. I was homeschooling for the year. I've got an 11-year-old upstairs, 6-year-old down here. He may be wearing pants, right? But it's okay, because the people who don't have patience for that are probably not the people who want to work with me. And that's fine. There are other vendors. There are other people. By all means, absolutely work with those people. They're great, I'm sure. But if you're okay with a 6-year-old running through in a cape and nothing else, I
think I ever got to see that.
I know. We actually didn't have that moment. We had other ones, other requests.
You just never knew if you might, right?
Yeah, but I think it's important to put yourself out there as who you are. And if you can find a partner that understands that and is happy to help you reflect that in color, in branding, in messaging, all of those things, that's a good partner.
I love that. I love that so much, because again, there's not everybody's a fit for everyone else. And it's not, we're not disparaging other people who may be a better fit.
Not at all.
But also, if I always told women this, I've been telling women this for years, if you are not authentic about who you are and what you offer, and you put on this sort of facade or this thing that you think looks a little more perfect than the real you, then like you said earlier, you're going to attract people who want that. And then once you start working with them, it's not going to be a fit at all, because you may try to keep that up, but you're not going to be joyful in your work. And so they're going to be attracted to that not real you. So I think it's just so important. Like you said, if somebody's really disturbed by your child running around behind you, then they're not your people. And they need someone who's sitting in an office, maybe, who doesn't get interrupted and that sort of thing. So I really like that a lot. And I think we can take that that whole concept, Amanda, and just with our businesses in general and how we be, whether it's on social media, how we be anywhere.
Yeah.
That we have a footprint, if you will, that and not, I love that's one of the things I really love about you. I love many things about you, but some of your Facebook posts either just have me laughing out loud, almost snorting my tea up my nose. And some of them, were just heart like, oh man, Amanda's having and you're not like spilling your guts and stuff, but you're just like, I'm struggling a little bit right now with this, and I think that's who I want to see, that person. Those are people I might want to be friends with. Those are people I want to work with. Those are people in my tribe, if you will, that it's not about perfection or putting up this facade. So we don't want to do it as humans, and we certainly don't want to do it on our websites, on their all the digital stuff that's out there.
Yeah, you might have a business where that's appropriate. And by all means, I'm not telling everybody to spill their guts all the time, right?
Right. Well, I don't think you do spill your guts. No, I'm saying, yeah.
It's
and
actually,
I don't either. Yeah.
It's pretty calculated, believe it or not. Though
Exactly.
sometimes I feel as though in life, and I'm not talking about, I feel like my Facebook page and my company are kind of the same, but there's a separation, right?
Mhm.
But I think that in life, we're able to connect through being a little vulnerable.
That's the word. That's the word. Yeah.
And this has been a year that has exposed so many vulnerabilities for all of us. On the very surface, it showed you vulnerabilities in your web presence, right? And that's on like the surface. But then if you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and sometimes it's just nice to raise up the white flag and say, you know what? This is what it is, folks. And I see you, and I think you see me, and let's just be people. And I think that is the beauty of what social media and digital has given us, the flip side of some of the garbage that's out there. And so every once in a while, I think it's a good thing to do.
I really do agree with that. So what does it mean to have a manageable website? How do we have one of those?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I think that's another thing that I love to do with clients, is to listen to what they need and then sort out that sitemap, right? Really taking a look at, can we get that menu down to its core of what you need it to be? There have been people who have sitemaps that are, and what I mean by sitemap is you've got your menu, which may exist anywhere. It might be in like one of those squished hamburger things at the top.
Mhm.
It may be spread across. It might be on the side, wherever you choose to put it, but it's going to be the navigation for your website to help people find what they need. So sometimes you can really compress it and it gets really kind of confusing. Sometimes you can expand it and it gets to be too much. But finding that nice sweet spot of, what are the things that are necessary and what are the things that are not? And even if you have some things that are not quite necessary, where do we place them? I have clients who say that they have, it's great. So Ginny's network, to people who may not be familiar, is pretty spectacular. Some really, really interesting people. I have met people who have come from all different walks. I have all sorts of different experiences. And when I talk to some of them, what's interesting is you see people saying, I was doing this line of work, and now I'm doing this kind of work. Do I want to talk about the work that I have done before? And I think that's kind of where we get into is it too much information? And I think it's a really simple moment where you say, okay, does one inform the other?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it does. On my website, I talk a little bit about how I used to work in the tea industry. And that's, seems like kind of far out there, but I worked for one of the largest online retailers of tea at the time, the largest one. And so I got to learn my customer service chops and all of that other stuff. And it was all done digital. I wasn't on the phone with anybody. Mm-hmm. So there is a tie in there. So there's, it's a quick little thing. It's dropped in there and then off you go. I think that that's appropriate sometimes. But those are, you just want to take a look at what's there and does it appeal? Does it apply? Is somebody going to read this and say, you know what, because of this experience, I want to work with this person?
Yes, yes. Where I don't think my corporate financial background is relevant today. It's relevant from the place that I left it. That's a story, that I had the courage to actually say goodbye to it all. Mm-hmm. But I think Dora Bilk Shapiro, and I think she's such a great example of that. She was a dentist who
Mhm.
left dentistry and now she writes steamy novels.
I
Well, I
know.
love the fact that she tells us she's a dentist
That's
because
fantastic.
that's just like, it just makes it really much cooler, I think. So I think I love, but I never thought about why or what that meant. So I'm glad that you kind of explained when we might want to do that and when we might not want to do that. Is it relevant, I guess?
Is it
Or,
relatable,
yeah.
right? I
Mhm.
think that there's something, especially for women my age, when when we're kind of making that transition, like things sort of start changing in your 40s. Things start happening, things start getting real. People pass away, life changes, children are born, and your priorities change. So a lot of us go through this shift when we're looking at our lives in one place and we're looking at what we want for the future. And stories like I was a dentist and now I write novels, or I was in corporate and now I run a successful global networking community of women. That kind of stuff's inspiring.
Mhm.
So by all means, those kind of stories are fantastic and we want to hear them.
Thanks for that. I like that.
It's true.
I like everything you're saying. So feel like a broken record. I like that, Amanda. Thank you. I agree. So, and I just want to say, go back to the manageable piece again. And I can remember in some of our conversations, I think I would say, well, I think I'm going to need this too. I think I'm going to need a page for this. I'm going to need a page for that. And in my mind, and probably could have drawn out a map myself, but in my mind, it's like, how is this ever like going to be easy for people to like navigate? And I would go on the site, you would say, I've done some things, and it's like everything you touch brings you to something else and then brings you back. And that is what I find so manageable and wonderful about my site is that, and I'm sure there are people who've already experienced that, but I just love the idea that whatever I asked for I think there were a few times when you said, well, are you sure that you really need that? Or maybe it's one of those drop down things or one of those, continue here kind of things rather than a full page.
Mhm.
And you were always right, and yet there was this cohesiveness, I guess, and this ease that I felt because I had in my mind that I was somehow supposed to figure it out, but I knew I wasn't. But yet there was this, oh, how's it ever going to all fit together? You do that so beautifully, and it's like magical from where I'm sitting. So so it takes all that away. So I'm just saying that for the people who like think it's going to take way more brain power or all this stuff, white matter, they're going to have to use to get a new website or to upgrade the one that you have. Working with Amanda, no, you don't really need to figure all that stuff out. And probably working with a lot of people, you don't have to figure it out. But Amanda does it with such grace and ease. And let me just say this, I wanted to work with someone where I wouldn't feel stupid every day.
Nobody has time for that.
I wanted to work with somebody who didn't treat me like, like a really old lady who didn't know anything about anything, because
Yeah.
I've had that experience at like the Apple store.
Well, I'll tell you, I've had that experience. So when I
You
moved,
have?
oh, absolutely. When I moved to Baltimore, I was in, let's see, oh goodness, I guess I was in my early 30s and I needed to get a job. My husband had taken up a job on Kent Island and I needed to get a job. I was laying in bed crying, sick. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. I looked online and I found out that there was an advertising agency up the road. That was my understanding, right? This is a digital advertising agency up the road. I'm like, I can walk there. I'm getting a job there. I don't know how it's going to happen. So I went in, I said, look, I have this experience. I worked for an agency in Jersey. I worked for a tea company in Jersey. And they gave me a traffic coordinator position. The people that I was working with were probably about 7 to 10 years younger than me. And I knew nothing. And I was told it's going to take at least a year for the learning curve. And I felt like a moron for a year. Fast forward about a year or two later, I'm in a conference room with my boss and it's a whole thing on the Myers-Briggs personality test. So I take the Myers-Briggs and I am the only person in the room with my personality type. The only one, is an ENFP.
ENFP.
Like
ENFP?
ENFP, big shocker.
Mhm.
So people are looking at me and they're like, yeah, based on your personality test, you probably shouldn't be working here. And then fast forward another year or so, they brought in this nonverbal communication expert, and I'm sitting there just listening to what she has to say. And she's like, well, this person is this, and this person is this. And she points at me and says, and you look like you're a writer. You probably don't even want to be here. And I said, okay. So I was always a square peg in a round hole, but I was interested and I really wanted to learn the industry and figure out what all of this was and what you could do with it. Kind of like learning how to knit because you really want to have the sweater. I really wanted to figure it out. So I figured it out and I did my thing. And then, you know, the square peg in the round hole-ofness kind of took over.
Mhm.
But the thing that stuck was the idea that there are all these people over here that are explaining it this way. And I understand it a different way. And I can translate what they're doing over there to talk to other people who don't have the technical background, who don't have the experience, and are intimidated by all of this. There's no reason for people to feel like garbage when they want to put themselves out there online. It's a necessary thing for businesses these days to have an online presence. And to feel lousy about it is just wasted energy.
Yeah.
So why not help people who want to feel good about themselves? So yeah, I don't want to make anybody feel like the way I felt.
That's a really good story because it also brought you to here to this moment, didn't it? You know, all that. I'm hanging in here because I want to learn this stuff. I want to, and you probably didn't know the plan yet, but you knew there was something else you were headed towards. That you weren't going to be doing, weren't going to be in that QB or whatever it was for the rest of your life, right?
Yeah. Oh, the first day I walked into the office, I was in I had moved into a Baltimore row home. So I was living in a 9-foot column, right? And then I moved to my office and I was sitting in a cubicle in a 9-foot column. And I'm like, I spend my entire existence in a 9-foot column. I don't know how much more, I don't know how sustainable this is.
Mhm.
It went on for a while. But, you know, people put up with me and, you know, taught me what they knew and had some great supervisors and great teammates who were very patient with me, and it worked out.
My experience too is that if I'm feeling intimidated by any kind of technology, somebody is also may be able to talk me into saying something that isn't the best for me.
Yeah.
It'll be kind of like they'll be telling me, well, you know, you need this, and it's like, okay, maybe I do need that. But
yeah,
you brought that up a little earlier.
Yeah, it can be really challenging. Sometimes I'll see something that I think someone might need, and then I understand that it's going to take a little bit of talking about it. And I also kind of understand it may not happen.
Mhm.
And I don't want to be the jerk who says, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got like my first client was is a writer, and I said, look, you're a writer, you probably need a blog. And she was like, I don't want to write a blog. I refuse to do it. And that was a great moment for me where I'm like, you know what? What's going to happen if she doesn't have a blog?
Mhm.
What's really going to happen? I mean, her SEO may be impacted, but she was willing to live with that, willing to be fine with that. She just wanted a website. I'm like, okay, fine.
Mhm.
It depends on your goals. It depends on what you want. A good partner will tell you good ideas, but if they can't back that up with any understandable, reasonable reason to move forward with it, then maybe it's something you want to forego.
Well, let's talk then about platforms. What are some of how do you choose platforms based on goals that you may have? Because not everybody needs everything.
Not everybody needs everything. That's the way I feel about it for sure. And yes, if you're a writer, I do think you should blog.
Well, I'm going to stop talking. I mean, I'm not going to stop talking. I'm going to interrupt you for just a minute and go down another path real quick, because I want to go back to what that woman said to you in that meeting. You look like a writer. At that moment, did you feel like you were a writer? Did you want to be a writer? Were you writing? Or did that seem kind of like alien?
That was not alien at all.
Okay. That's so interesting because I know you write now.
I do.
But I didn't know how long ago you'd done that. So I think that's so interesting that she saw that, and then you have to pretend like it's not true sitting in this room full of your bosses and colleagues, right?
I felt as though all of a sudden I was sitting in my underpants.
Yeah, really. I mean, I don't know if that's the best way to handle something like that. Like, you are this, and you probably don't think that's a bit in your face, but
well, you know,
it probably kind of helped you wake up a little bit too, maybe, huh?
It's interesting when you realize that you are displaying what's happening, right? And I think that again, we're back to that authenticity.
Yes.
I can't help.
Can't help it. Yeah. And it probably serves you well and probably hasn't served you well in the wrong places sometimes.
It served me well here. It has not served me well in other places.
Yes.
For sure. And I'm glad that I came to that revelation.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Life has been a lot better.
Yes. Okay, let's go back to platforms now.
The platforms. Yeah, I think that when a quick Google search, believe it or not, will help with a lot of situations, right? So these kind of things fluctuate and change every once in a while. But for the most part, if you're looking for an older demographic, you're going to find them on Facebook. And by older, I mean 45 and up. We're hanging out there. That's where we're at. Instagram is like the next step down, like if you're a little bit younger. And then it kind of evolves into all sorts of other platforms. Snapchat, I mean, people still use it, kind of comes and goes, those quick messages. It's kind of shticky for me. But if you know people who use it, fantastic. My kid loves TikTok. Loves TikTok. I love TikTok. I watch a lot of it. Do I think my audience is there? Not for me. Not really. Occasionally I'll put a goofy post up about someone's birthday or me making coffee. That's about it. But that's just because I like to tinker with media. I like to tinker with effects and stuff. It's just something I've always enjoyed doing, a little creative in that way. Not great at it, but a little creative. But I think a quick Google of where your audience is. And it's beyond platform too. Like I think about I was doing some research about how many touch points you need to reach your customer. And the advice ranges anywhere from 5 to 20 touch points.
It hasn't changed much over the years, even with all the new ways to reach them. That's so interesting.
It's just a matter of how many times you need to reach somebody, right? So when I think about touch points, I try to think about 7. And for me, my touch points, if I'm working within the On Purpose Women Global community, is going to be, posting a Facebook page post. It's going to be attending a meeting. That's 2. What other ways can we do this? Like, those are the kind of ideas I'm having. Is it a promotion? I'm going to promote my ability to create ads for the On Purpose Woman magazine. That's another touch point. So if I'm seeing that, I've noticed that some of the women in the group are on Clubhouse, which is a platform that people are using for broader conversations. So they'll put up a post saying, I'm going to have a conversation about ancestry and money. And I'm going to be talking about this at 7:00 on blah, blah, blah. Well, then you have a whole other group of people who are talking about that kind of stuff. They know exactly what you're going to be talking about. If you feel comfortable speaking, that's a great thing. I did a lot of radio in college. I feel pretty comfortable speaking into the abyss without people seeing my face. This is okay. But, I know that that's a comfortable place if I have something specific I want to say. As of right now, I don't have anything specific I want to say. So I'm going to hold back from that for the time being. But I think it's really understanding where the people are that may be in need of your service, where they're expecting to see you. It could be a conference. You have a conference of holistic practitioners and that they're going to be there. See if they're on Twitter, see if there's a hashtag going around. Maybe they're not on Twitter, maybe they're not, but that's another way you can use a platform to connect. So it's just kind of getting a basic understanding of what these platforms do, how they're evolving, and then trying to find where your people are on them and use it as one of your touch points.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for the reminder of that because, kind of old school touch points, we didn't have social media. When I started my business, there was no internet. So touch points were mailing a brochure, putting the brochures up on the bulletin board at Whole Foods, hoping somebody saw it, maybe making a phone call. Yep. But I think it's easy for me to forget that the other things are really legitimate touch points as well. I mean, those other things are still important too. They didn't go away. That's right. But we have so many new ones. And if we can view them as touch points, then maybe treat them a little more, do more consistent things with them.
That's rather than,
yeah.
It's why you get catalogs all the time, right? I mean, they don't expect you to be ordering from the catalog all the time. They just know that every time they touch, it's another touch point.
Yeah.
So yeah, mail is still viable. Phone is still viable. Networking events still viable. It's an integrated marketing plan, and having digital is a great key to that.
Yes, thank you for that. So I want to talk about something else that isn't really fully related to our topic today, but it is. And that's
Okay.
this idea that you talk about outsourcing and self-care. So there's no way I couldn't have outsourced my website. I had to.
Yeah,
But there are other things that I was forcing myself to actually learn to do or to handle. I've been doing it for years. And you know that probably a year ago, maybe longer than that now, I finally got a virtual assistant who's worked out so well for me.
she's fantastic.
And I don't know how I did it before. Well, I didn't do it that well. But self-care has become much more, it was always important to me, I said, but yet work always took priority. So it's like I have more time now to devote to that because I outsource some things. So why do you think it's important to do that? I mean, do you do self-care as a mom with 2 kids?
I provide self-care at this point, and I see the effect it has on my clients. I talk to a lot of people who say, I spent 5 hours on my website last night trying to create a page. And I think to myself, that's 5 hours that they could have used doing anything else. It could have been a bubble bath. It could have been making calls. It could have been invoicing, right? Like, people put aside the things that are really core to their business that only they can do. I would hate to say that, I would hate to see somebody say, I wanted to take clients last night, but I knew that I had a book that was publishing and I needed to make sure I had this web page ready for this but I couldn't take the client. And that's where I'm like, because later on, you're going to meet that client. You're going to have that great experience. You're going to do what you're supposed to be doing, right? And then that's, again, that whole idea of purpose-based business. So I know that, when I'm not writing and when I'm not writing, hanging with kids or whatever, this is what I like to do. And it's something that is quick, and I wouldn't say easy, but it's become easy. And I know that, it's going to take me a lot faster to just take care of it for you. Let me just take care of it for you. And just to see how people calm down and they have more time to do the work that they want to do. And I think that a pedicure isn't going to do it for me. A massage is going to be done in 20 minutes and I'm going to be all back up in it again. But if I have someone taking care of it for me, so I can focus on something else that I'm better at and that I'm more equipped to handle, I think that's always a good thing. And I think that's self-care.
And I do too. I think a lot of this come out in the last year and a half, during the pandemic, when people started saying, self-care is way more than a pedicure, or it's way more than just even meditation. It's all these other things than we think about. But usually it's, take a bubble bath and get a pedicure. Self-care can be getting stuff off your plate and passing it on so that we do, I love that whole idea of, it's in that book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, where he talks about, we all have these zones that we live and work in. And real quickly, there's the zone of competence, there's the zone of incompetence, there's the zone of excellence, there's the zone of genius. And that we should never be hanging out in the zone of incompetence, but we do sometimes. We try to figure stuff out. It's not our thing. The zone of competence is where, I can do that. Maybe somebody says, I know how to build a website, or I took a class in that and I can do it. But how well will you do it? And then the zone of excellence is, I'm really good at this and people have paid me lots of money to do it, yet I'm not jazzed by it.
Right.
And so we can get stuck in that quadrant a lot just because the money's rolling in, or because we haven't seen the value in paying somebody else to take it on. And the idea is that the more we hang out in our zone of genius, which is where you're hanging out, where I'm hanging out, doing the things that we know how to do, that we love to do, not just because we know how to do it, but we can do it with ease and grace. Not necessarily easy all the time, but
No.
there's a big difference between easy and ease, I believe.
No, I agree.
And so I think that seeing that as a form of self-care and taking care of yourself and not forcing yourself. Yesterday, I had sent you something from my, what do you call it? My website host.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't remember what we decided on. Should I renew this? You're like, no, don't renew it. So I went on to like cancel it, and I couldn't figure out how to cancel it. So I emailed you and said, would you have time to like go in and cancel this for me? Because I spent like 15 minutes.
I hope
I could have just been goofy. Might not be that hard. I couldn't find it, but it felt so good to just say, Amanda, would you do this for me?
Yeah.
Use my retainer money and handle this for me.
You don't want to pull the stopper out of the bottom of the ship and all of a sudden the thing sinks. I mean, if you cancel the wrong hosting service, your website.
Exactly. That's what I was afraid of. And so I also don't want to wait and have it renew on the first, because it's a substantial amount of money. So it was like, okay, just stop stressing over this. I'm sure Amanda won't be able to, it'll take her 3 seconds to probably go in and do it. So it's just, I thought that was a great example of what you're talking about. I felt but I'm kind of rambling now, but sometimes we don't start thinking that way. We have to stress for a while before we start to go, okay, wait a minute. I have somebody who does this.
Yeah.
I'll do that with Anne sometimes, my virtual assistant, like I'm doing, I bet she knows how to do a form really easy. Why am I sitting here trying to create a form in a Word doc, right? That's not even the best place to do a form.
I feel like I come from a background of martyrdom. And so I've taken, and I think a lot of my problem solving comes from that. So, this allows me to choose when I do that kind of problem solving, having a career like this. But yeah, I think a lot of us think, well, is it going to be the money, or am I going to watch a few YouTube videos and replace my garbage disposal? And there comes to a point where you're just like, you know what, call the plumber. And that's a very hands-on, tangible thing, but it's very hard to say, oh, come on, internet, I can figure this out. And sometimes, a lot of people do, and kudos to them, because it can be a lot of work. It can be a lot of confusion. But if you're able to hand it off to somebody else so they can focus on something you're more passionate about, I'm always a big advocate for that.
Yeah. And the self-care piece is one thing, but also, remember what we're worth per hour ourselves.
Yeah.
What could we be earning in that time if we were doing something that we really are good at and love to do? So I like that.
Yes.
Okay. We have a bonus topic that you had suggested today, which I'd love to talk about. And that is, are they 2 bonus topics, or do they all run together? Tea and tea drinking, entrepreneurship and parenting. Entrepreneurship and parenting, interesting topic.
Okay, so let's see. The first one was tea drinking. Obsessed about tea drinking, of course. Now, I've talked a little bit about my fleeting moment in the tea industry, but I feel that there is process and pause in it, and it forces me to stop, which is probably the greatest thing I could do for myself right now. I love a cup of coffee. Don't get me wrong, but there's something very special about loose leaf tea in particular, the experience of the leaf opening up, the understanding that that leaf came from another area of the world, that it was grown from someplace, that it was picked by somebody. And sure, you can do that with your lettuce or your grapes or whatever. And I think we all should be mindful of the fact that these things don't just arrive in our worlds. Right. But I find that there's something so lovely about having a whole leaf oolong tea that's just going to open up, and all of a sudden you have a 3-inch tea leaf in your cup, and it's just, there's something very magical about that. So yes, I'm very passionate about tea drinking. So if anybody in the group ever wants to talk about favorite teas, I'm always up for talking about it. So that was tea. And you had said,
let me just jump in really quick though and say, this is such a great example too of what we started out talking about: authenticity, telling people a bit more about who you are and what jazzes you, rather than just, I can get the job done kind of thing. And even non-tea drinkers wouldn't matter, because it's like, oh gosh, she's so passionate about that. And I love tea too, so I could just feel it. It's a place to sit. I've got only 2 cups that I use for my tea because they're both special. And I don't do a lot of brewing myself. I mean, I have, but sometimes I just do the tea bags. But man, we've got a tea caddy with an assortment of like 30 different teas at any given time. And it's a ritual. And in the wintertime, if the house is a little chilly, just wrapping my hands around it. So I so get that. But that tells me and other people a little bit more about you. And it's about aesthetics. It's about passion. It's about beauty, all of those things. So,
Will
yeah.
you indulge me?
What was that?
Will you indulge me with a question?
I will.
Tell me about your cups. You have two.
I do, and they're not teacups. I tried to do, they're too dainty for me. I like a bigger cup, and I'll leave it in longer sometimes so that one is in fact, I had a picture of it, but I can't grab it right now. It's a cup from my friend Sherry Robbins, who's this amazing musician, singer-songwriter, and she had the cover of her newest album she had put
Cool.
on mugs,
Mhm.
and has a red interior. And then the cover, it's just absolutely stunning in reds and blacks and blues. And I took a picture one day and put it up on my Facebook page and talked about it and talked about her. And I think that was just one of those, those pictures that got like hundreds of comments and just reactions, because, people just, I don't know, it just, things like that just bring us together more.
Yeah.
And the other one is just one I bought at Target, but it's like a pale lilac and it's shaped like this. And it's got just a nice shape. And I can also, it's bigger. I can put more water in it if I have a stronger tea and I want to have more tea. So those are the two. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, I was just curious. So you've only got two. I mean, I have a mug problem. I have a legitimate teacup problem. So to hear you only have two, I want to know about them.
Well, I have a bunch more cups, but I just only use two of them.
For the tea.
And then Don has 3 or 4 that he's a tea person too.
Mhm.
So do you want to talk a little bit, the time we have left, about entrepreneurship and parenting?
It's been for me the only way to do it. And I think that it comes back to this world we live in, where we're taught that we go down a certain path, and that is these are the things that you do. And a lot of those paths don't necessarily allow you to do the things you want to do in a way that's right. I don't feel as though the path I was taking was going to yield a healthy relationship with my kids or a fostering a family. And I don't know. I think that mothers are hungry for those opportunities. And I fear sometimes that that hunger is taken advantage of at times by other organizations who want to, kind of tap into that hunger, that hunger for flexibility, that hunger for, something different. But I think that if a mom has an idea, talk about it with your friends, or don't. Sometimes you don't want to talk about it, right? You want to just kind of hone it and work on it. Write the business plan. If the business plan is too hard, take that small step. Take that class that you think might get you there. Change your job to something that isn't necessarily going to pay as much, but might teach you that skill. The things, like, there are little baby steps you can take, and it's not as scary as they let on. My father always told me he never wanted me to own my own business because of the stress and the anxiety that came along with it. He owned his own business, as did his father. I come from a long line of entrepreneurs and handicraft type people. And he's like, you don't want this stress. And I got to tell you, there's nothing else in the world that I want more than this stress. This is good for me. So, if you can be flexible in your mindset, it can yield all sorts of wonderful results. So don't discount, the amount of work or the amount of pressure or the dips and the peaks and dips in income. Being able to go to bed at night and breathe and know that I am the person I am, and I didn't have to put a show on for anybody, and I didn't have to worry about calling in sick because my kid was sick, and being able to take care of the people and the things that are important to me has made all the difference in my life. And that's my self-care. And that's where it is for me right now. So just
wow. I think there's an article there. Think about that. Like, writing an article on that for the magazine at some point. I know you probably have some writing assignments you might be able to use for that, right?
Yeah.
Are you taking a class? You're not taking a class right now, probably, in writing, are you?
I've got a writing group.
I know you're in a group, yeah.
I am in a group, which I'm not that great about submitting, but they are very patient with me and they understand. So, and they're
And
putting
you
out.
said some remarkable things, I think, in just that very short bit that you talked about that I think would be really helpful for more women to hear. So if you ever feel inspired to do that, I would love to have something from you about that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So before we leave here, we had all this time and now it's almost over so quickly. Tell everybody how they can find out more about you, your website and all that.
Well, you can find me at mendeddigital.com. It's mended like to fix, to mend. Again, hearkening back to my family's tradition in handicraft, upholstery, and all of that, we like to fix. So mendeddigital.com. You can find it on Facebook as well. I don't do the other social media stuff right now because I don't know what images you want to see from Mended. I don't know what tweets you want to hear from Mended. And you certainly don't want to hear me talk about digital marketing because, well, maybe if you hung out here, maybe you do, but not everybody's into it. So find me on Facebook. That's a good place. You can also email me, info@mendeddigital.com will get you to me. And that's probably the easiest way.
Great. And let me just also say that if you're feeling, I think sometimes we could have this like trepidation. Oh, if I talk to them, it's like a commitment. It's not a commitment.
Oh, no.
Actually,
No.
You're both interviewing each other in this case, so just step out if you want to have a conversation. And with Amanda, she'll be really easy to have that conversation with. So Amanda, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your humor, I'm just so happy with my website. You're a real joy to work with. And you've given us some really great information today, not just about your digital marketing presence, but about a number of other things that you've woven in and out. So I really appreciate that. Glad you're here.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk.
You're so welcome. And thank you all for joining us for the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show live in the On Purpose Woman Magazine and Global Community Facebook page. There's just one more interview this month, and it's this Friday, August 27th. I'll talk with Claudette Gadsden, Coach Claudette, and we'll talk about the driveway to peace. Doesn't that sound delicious?
Nice, yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea. She's an amazing woman. And I'm really looking forward to that. The September-October issue of On Purpose Woman magazine will be available on September 1st. So check that out for the Real Women, Real Purpose talk show schedule for September and October. If you love this interview and you want to share it with your friends, it will be on our YouTube channel in the next 48 hours. So go on over to YouTube, put in On Purpose Woman Global Community, and you'll find right now probably over 80 inspiring, educational, fun, just really awesome interviews with real women who have a real purpose, and they're telling you about it and they're offering you some really great information. Thank you again for watching the Real Woman, Real Purpose talk show. I'm Ginny Robertson. Till next time. Bye.